Alrighty, let's get started with some housekeeping first. Again, welcome to today's HR training session. My name is Tom, part of the customer trainer team here at Employment Hero. And today we'll be taking you through the second part of our onboarding offboarding series, this time focusing on certifications, file management, and offboarding. Now, just a little bit of housekeeping. As you do join in, you will notice that you are muted. That will be for the duration of the session. That's just so we can keep to time as we cover every topic. But that being said, we do want to know any question that you have. To let us know any question that you do have as we move throughout today's session, instead of using the chat area, because that is unmonitored, use the Q&A button down at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Pop in your question there and we'll be most able to answer the questions as we move throughout today's session. If we don't get to your question straight away, it's not that we're ignoring you. It's more that we're just trying to fit that question or the answer to maybe an up and coming topic. Otherwise, any outstanding questions we'll look at the back end of the session where, if time permitting, we'll allow you to come off mute and ask those last minute questions before we wrap things up. This session is recorded, and you'll get that recording about an hour or so after the webinar ends, and it's delivered automatically by Zoom to your registered email address. On top of which, you will get a copy of the slide resources, and that will be provided to you by your implementation team after the webinar to nearing your next call. Now, on top of which, as you do leave, there is a little handy survey that as you do exit, I would greatly appreciate if you do fill that out. It does help us let us know if we're doing a good job or not. So please feel free to fill that out. So with that being said, as I mentioned, today I'll be taking you through our second part in our onboard and offboarding series. Specifically, we'll be going through firstly certification management. Then we'll go through the ongoing employee file management. And then lastly, we'll go through the offboarding process and features. So let's kick things off with certification management. Now, we're going to start off with a bit of an overview first of the certifications module. Now, this module allows you to store and set up your certifications in a centralized location in the platform to ensure that you're operating in compliance with the relevant regulations in your industry. Within your organization, you might have employees that require a certain qualification, maybe pass a certain training course, or hold a particular license to fulfill their duties in your organization. Now, certifications can be mandatory or optional depending on the type of certification. For example, an optional certification may be something to do around with tertiary education, but maybe a mandatory certification might be something like a working with children's check. Now, this feature allows you to set up your organization certification and ask for your details from your employees, including the ability to give them the opportunity for your employees to add proof of attaining that certification by adding either a picture or an uploaded file. You can also report on certifications to ensure that you are meeting compliance requirements too. Now, certifications can also be enabled as a mandatory step as part of the employee onboarding experience to ensure this is captured upon commencement of employment. And we did cover this in our part one of this series. Now, just remember though, by default, your platform won't include certifications in that onboarding wizard. So if you would like this to be included, just make sure that you are jumping into your settings as you can see on the left-hand side here and enable this. You'll navigate to settings, people, and employee file customization. And here you'll see the three options that you can enable within the onboarding process. And the middle one is your certifications option, where you can include this in the onboarding wizard if you do check the selection box. Then when your new starters do go through that onboarding wizard, they'll have a stage for certifications that they can complete and be presented with a page similar to what you see on the right-hand screenshot here. Just remember that when you enable certifications during onboarding, any mandatory ones must be completed before the employee can finish that onboarding process and access the platform. Optional certifications, on the other hand, can be skipped for now, and if the employee does earn them later on, they can just always jump into their profile and complete them at any time. We'll now move on to the process of creating certification in your platform, which will then allow us to assign it to our employees. So jumping in, to create a certification, you will need to navigate to the left-hand sidebar, select the compliance icon, and then select certifications. Here, we'll then select the purple Add Certification button. Now, when you are creating your certification, you will need to first put in a certification name. Now, it's important to note that when you do pop in a certification name, to take note of the names of your existing certifications. The platform will not allow you to create a new certification with the same name as a previous certification, even if it has been archived. So just bear that in mind that if you know that there are going to be potential variations to your certification, you might want to consider maybe putting the year or perhaps maybe a state as well, just to differentiate between the multiple revisions of your certification. Next up is your certification type. Now, the certification type, there are four to choose from when you click the field. We have check, license, qualification, and training. Now, these don't impact any functionality, but can help you to identify and differentiate when reporting on these documents further down the line. Seen as it references it in the certification name, we're going to do a check for the Working with Children's check. And next up, we do have our assigning field here. Now, when assigning a certification, you are basically outlining which groups or locations or individuals need to supply this particular certification. This certification will then apply to all existing employees if you do it via group or location, as well as any new ones who might join your organization. Now, it's totally optional at this now, and actually we do recommend leaving this blank for the moment, just so that you can continue to set up the actual certification and its configuration first. Before moving on to next, you can see we can click this advanced options button. This presents with 3 more options. We can optionally pop in a description. Maybe we want to put in a bit of a description about the certification, which we're going to do here, or maybe some instructions for the certification if you did want to, some guidelines about how to go about completing it. We can then pop in whether specify state or territory, and then we have this additional information field. This allows you to attach a document that maybe perhaps again provides instructions to employees on how to obtain that certification. For example, how to apply for a Working with Children's check in New South Wales and Victoria, as opposed to a vulnerable people check in the ACT. Or alternatively, you may want to upload maybe a form to fill out, such as maybe a police check form that they then download, complete it, and then re-upload that as part of the certification requirement. So totally up to you. We can then, once we're happy with the basic information, we can go ahead and click Next to be brought into some additional specific configurations for this particular certification. Now, the first option that you will be presented with is to determine whether the certification is going to be mandatory or optional. By clicking the field, you have those options, but no matter which one you choose, both will send an initial notification when the certification is assigned, which includes a description of what the certification is and a hyperlink to the certification where that employee can click in and be directed to the page to upload their certification. If a certification is classified as optional, The employee will be able to still upload a document if you have specified that, but will not be reminded to complete this certification. If a classification is marked as mandatory instead, it will trigger what's known as a weekly reminder email to any employee who is assigned to it until it has been complete. This weekly email includes certifications, policies, and induction content that have also been marked as mandatory. So while those optional certifications will get that initial, you have been assigned to this certification email, that will not be part of that weekly compliance email. And as previously noted, if you have selected certifications to be mandatory during the onboarding process, again, they'll also be required to be completed for employees assigned to this and complete that certification before they can progress onboarding. We then have the ability to specify our renewal type. Now, we have three options to choose from. The choice will indicate whether the document needs to be renewed, if at all. If so, it indicates to the system when the renewal must take place and trigger reminder email notifications of the expiry too. Now, the one-off renewal type, this certification does not need to be renewed and no renewal email will be triggered and is great for potentially something like a tertiary education certification. We then have the expiry date renewal type. Now, when it comes to this certification is for when that certification has an expiration date listed and must be renewed on or before the date, and a renewal email will be triggered when it comes time to for this type of cert. And this is perfect for things like a driver license where it does list on the card an expiry date. And lastly, we have a renewing renewal type. Now, this is for those certifications that do need to be renewed periodically, like every year, or maybe in this instance where we're doing a working with children's check, perhaps maybe every 3 years. Formally, we can add that in. I do know that for first aid and CPR type of certifications, your first aid needs to be done every 3 years, and with a yearly CPR refresher as well. So if this was a first aid, we could set 3 and then define whether it's in days, weeks, months, or years. And this type of email, again, like with expiration date, does renew. So an email will be triggered when it comes time for renewal for this cert. Now, just flagging with the renewal type, from an employee perspective, they will see it labeled as issue date rather than an expiry date when they go to complete the certification. The reason for this is when those kinds of types of certifications, usually like again with like a first aid, you attain it, and then on that document that says you've attained it, it says issued at X date. So that's why. Now, when it comes to this type of set configuration step, this renewal type, you'll have 12 months to change before it does get locked in after the creation date. Just below that, we have a set due date. Now, you might be thinking, wait, we already have reminder emails for when certain certifications are out of compliance based on the renewing type. Well, the purpose of this due date field is you can set a due date relative to the date a certification is assigned to the employee. And this just encourages the employee to complete their compliance requirement in a timely manner. So what happens? Well, an email will be sent to the employee one day before the due date if the certifications are outstanding. If multiple certifications are due on the same day, one email is sent which summarizes those certifications and due the next day. Once it has passed, it'll be tagged as overdue in the employee profile after that due date has passed and can be used for future reporting. So again, it's not necessarily required to set a due date, but again, it's just something that encourages updating of those certifications in a timely manner, helping you as an admin get compliance under control. Next up, we have again some advanced options. When we do click the button, we do have some further abilities here. Now, we have the ability to select whether the personnel need to provide certain supporting documentation. So if you do indicate documentation required, this is for when you do need that employee to provide proof of this certification that can upload a file. Where you might have this proof of certificate or this documentation required selected, you might also want to consider an approval process as well. So the next thing below that is approval required? If we do select that approval is required, we have a field here. And if we do click that field, we can assign some certification approvers. And that means that they will cite and approve this particular certification. Usually when this is important, so like when maybe for important pieces like working with children's check, it means that those approvers can see whether it's the actual certification or maybe by mistake the employee submitted a picture of their pet dog, and they do need to decline that and actually get them to resubmit. Now, we can choose from some dynamic fields, so whether it's going to be the direct managers of the employee or the indirect. We can assign it to a group as well. Now, if you do assign it to a group, then everyone in that group will get an email notification to say this employee has uploaded the certification, but only one of the approvers needs to jump in and approve or decline. So it's just whoever gets in there first. If we do scroll down, you might want to consider for groups, maybe like an HR team, for example. Then we have individually as well. So maybe you have a compliance officer that needs to cite everyone. It's their role and remit to maintain certification and compliance across the organization. You can direct assign them to. And just so you know, you can add multiple approvers. It doesn't necessarily have to be just one person or one group. It could be a combination of. So we're going to select maybe a few people and maybe an HR team. Why not? Now we do have one thing also to note, just remember admins can always go in and approve certifications if they just won't get that email notification saying that an employee's uploaded it to, but they can go in and do manage certifications at will as well. Rightio. Moving on to our last few. Now, while additional security permissions can be given to access certifications of assignee, such as if maybe you have given managers oversight over their direct reports certifications, if the certification is particularly sensitive, just going to clear a few of the approvers. If the certification is particularly sensitive, you also have the ability to restrict access to specific certifications from your permission security groups. That way, the certification is only accessible. So I've selected the option to restrict. It's only accessible now by admins, approvers, and the assignee themselves. If it's not highly sensitive, you can allow security groups. And lastly, we have two extra fields we can include. We can add a question regarding previous driving offences, great for like heavy vehicle licenses for logistics, or add in a certification number field as well. That way, when the employee is uploading their certification, they do need to pop in the certification number. Great, for example, if you want the employee to record their police check reference number, they can pop it in that field. Once you are happy with your configuration, you can go ahead and click Save. Now, before it actually does get saved, a pop-up will appear. And what it tells you is that, and flags for you, is that once created, to maintain data integrity, you can't actually edit the certification type, the mandatory optional selection, or the security group's restrictions. So just keep that in mind before creating your certification. If you do have any questions for us, please, I encourage you, pop it into the Q&A, and we'd be more than happy to answer any questions that you have. If we do click Create now, this will create the certification. Scrolling down, we can see that here. Now, speaking of security groups, by default, managers actually don't have access to the reporting employee certifications. However, you can set this up and provide all employees with your organization who do have reporting employees with access to their certifications via your custom permission settings, just as mentioned. So the way to do so is we navigate to our sidebar, select settings. Under our security and access control options, we're going to select our permission settings. Now, you can absolutely create a new permission group if you haven't already done so, but I have one already created for my manager permissions, as you can see in the list here. So I'm going to select that one. Now, it's important to note that this is specifically giving access to whoever's in the group can view their reporting employees' data. That will allow us to add all employees into this security group, and only if they have reporting employees underneath them can they view that data. So let's go to our permission summary and select employee permissions. And if we do scroll down under employee file non-payroll details, we have our certifications uh, here. Now, we can give the ability to view only those certifications in the employee file, or the ability to also modify. Now, modify is actually a great option if your organization, you empower your people managers to maybe complete certifications on the employee's behalf. Let's just say maybe your employees aren't as tech savvy. You can get the manager to sort of help with that and upload the certification for them. On top of this, we also do have, if we do scroll down, under our compliance reports, we have our certifications report here. This also allows us to maybe perhaps you've got people managers with a lot of direct reports, let's say 20, for example, and you want those managers to have an easy way to see at a glance who is or is not in compliance with their certifications for their direct reports. If you do give this report out, this will allow them to view that information. Really handy tool there. Now, just to flag though, this compliance reports breakdown is only broken down or available to be broken down to specific individual reports on our highest tiered plans. If you are on the low tiered plans, that will be just all combined under one compliance report option. You can clarify with your team what type of plan you might have. Now, if you do have any questions about certification permission settings, please let me know in the Q&A. Otherwise, we are going to now move on to updating the certification, because as time goes on, you may need to update some of your certification details of your existing certification to keep on top of those industry and legislative requirements. So let's go ahead and update a certification. If we do go to the left sidebar, select compliance and get back into certifications. Let's go back to the certification we just created. Clicking the title of it will bring us into the certification details. And here, pardon me, we will always be able to update the certification details of the certification name field, the description, the state or territory, the additional information. We'll be able to assign and unassign the certification from employees and groups, etc., and also change who the approvers are as well. Now, once you have created and assigned a certification, you do have 12 months from the creation date to change, as you can see down below here, the certification renewal type, as I mentioned, the supporting documentation option, and the driving offences and certification number requirements too. Scrolling down a little bit further, you will notice down at the bottom, if you are making changes to your certification, all the employees who have been assigned this certification will receive an email that there's been a change. And depending on that change, you can choose whether you don't or sorry, apologies, whether you want to revert the certification back to outstanding for all assigned employees. Sometimes this is mandated if you are depending on the option that you're changing. The reason for this is that any that have been uploaded against the old set of configuration, this allows you to be sure that when you do go to re-review, that they will be still in compliance with the changes. With that being said, let's get back out of this particular certification and take a look at a certification I made a few years ago. So if I do click certification settings, I can see this 100-point identity check. Giving that a click. As you can see here, I can still, by clicking the edit button, change the certification name, description, state or territory, and additional information fields, those basic details. But I can't change the configuration settings of the certification or the certification type as well. Now, this is for compliance and record keeping purposes to ensure data validity and reliability that all employees are viewing consistent information. Now, as mentioned earlier, you can't update the certification type, that mandatory optional selection. The mandatory optional selection, that certification type, and the restriction of the security groups just below here once the certification has been created. Should you need to make further changes to a certification, and this was maybe created greater than 12 months ago, or it's one of those locked fields, you will need to archive this existing certification and create a new one. Now, let's actually pay attention to archiving and unassigning and reassigning, what that looks like. Just to flag, you do also have a version history of updates that have been made too. Now, here in the assignees area, if we do click edit, where employees are no longer required to have a specific certification, you can update who is assigned the certification in this assignees field. If you can always add employees in or groups in if you wanted to, but you can remove them too. Now, when you do remove them, this requirement from them, this will archive it specifically for those affected employees that you've unassigned. It will move their certification that they've already uploaded into an archived status. That being said, the employee will still, and you will still be able to view that archived certification by clicking a checkbox in their file to show archived certifications. And you will still also be able to report on those certifications as well that have been archived individually. Now, if you find that this particular certification as a whole needs to be retired, if we do scroll down under the certification management section, we also have an archive button that can archive the certification as a whole. As the platform calls out, once you do, this will not only archive it in for those specific employees, as I just mentioned in the individual basis, um, but it will archive it also in the certifications list too. That being said, it can still be reported on in your compliance reports, and that data is still viewable. So if we do click archive, it will change it to an archived setting, status up the top here. If we do backtrack out using our breadcrumb trail, you'll see that then archive certifications aren't listed by default. But if we've got a filter here for archived, and we can click to show archived certifications. As you can see, here's our certification that has been archived. If you Now, when it is archived as well, you can, as I mentioned, still go in and report on it. If I do click into it, if the compliance item is now needed again, it's now a requirement again, we can come back to our certification management and select unarchive. And as the platform calls out, whoever is I guess, assigned to it at that point in time. Whilst they didn't need to do anything with that certification when it was in an archive status, they won't be followed up with emails. When you click unarchive instead, what will happen is based on maybe the expiry date or issue date that has been entered in, whatever it is against that configuration, the status will update. So it might still be active, or it might change to an outstanding, and the employee can then go ahead and update that to or become active for the employee. And you can see that now active at the top of the certification details as well. Now, scrolling down just below, there is a delete button. Now, when it comes to deletion, we don't recommend deleting the certifications entirely once an employee has completed that certification. If you do need to genuinely delete a certification, you will need to use the confirm by entering in the compliance name in the parentheses into the certification name field. It will flag with you who it's going to affect. But just keep in mind that the delete action, just like in other areas of the platform, is a permanent hard delete. You won't be able to undo the action or retrieve the deleted data, and you will no longer be able to report on the data. Your employees will lose the data that they've uploaded, and we at Employment Hero can't retrieve that data for you. So just bear that in mind before you do go ahead and delete. That is why we strongly recommend archiving instead, so you get to keep the record and you can report on those archived ones if you did need to. If you do have any questions on certification management, please let me know in the Q&A. We are more than happy to answer those questions that come through. I'll now go through how you can actually track your employee compliance and how your employees can complete their compliance or complete their certifications outside of their onboarding workflow. So if I do go back to my slides, if you have a look at the video here, your employees can update their certification details, not just on the desktop, but in the Employment app too. In the Employment Hero app, they'll be able to update their certifications under the Work tab, scroll to certifications, view all outstanding, in review or active certifications, and they'll be able to complete that certification as you can see. Now, it's important to note that managers or whoever's asked to review certifications can only do that on the desktop. So with that being said, let's jump into the demo environment again, and I'm going to show you how you can do this. So we're going to search for, using our top search bar, we're going to search for Amy's profile and select to be brought into her profile. Scrolling down, we'll go down to the documents area, the documents window here, and certifications is our first tab that's already open. Now, here you'll be able to see the list of certifications. So the employee will be able to see all their certifications, their expiry date of each by using the arrow icon to drop it down. So on a high level, we can see the expiry date listed, if it's a mandatory optional, and what type of certification it is. So with that being said, when it comes time to updating a certification, all they need to do is select the ellipsis icon and select Edit. Here, they'll then be provided with those options to update. So if you've included the driving offences question, you can pop that in there too. They'll pop in their expiry date. They'll upload some supporting documentation. So let's just say we're going to pop in this one that I've just dragged from the desktop. Let's say the expiry date is up and coming. So we're just going to keep it as is, and we're going to select Save. As you can see, status changes to in review. Now, when it comes to certifications like the first aid and CPR one, this one, if I do click Edit, as I mentioned, for a renewal type, this will be listed as an issue date instead. Now, when it comes to reviewing certifications, when your approver gets that email notification, that gets triggered when it goes to an in review status, they'll either click the link in that email to be brought in, otherwise they can just navigate to the employee's file. So now that it's in review, you can see in the ellipsis icon, we can see that it is now in review. We can see the certification details. So what its current state is, what its previous state was. So we can see it was actually previously declined. And the reason for the decline was that the picture was incorrect. So we provided the decline reason, right? And then we can see the expiry date, like so. We can view the supporting documentation by clicking and it'll open it up in a new tab, as well as the certification number if it was enabled for this cert. And then we have the ability to either approve or decline a certification. If we do decline, again, we do need to provide a reason as well. So you might say that the certification was the correct upload, but it was unclear. You couldn't read the text of that certification. So you might want to say, hey, provide a better picture of this and just review our certification policy for completion guidelines sort of thing. Once you do click confirm, you'll see that it's gone into a decline status. Your employee will then be notified by email, and then they can go ahead and try again and complete that certification in line with what you've said. If you do have any questions for us, please let me know in the Q&A. We are more than happy to answer those for you. Now, it is also worth bearing in mind, again, as an admin, you will always be able to jump in and review certifications at will and update them as well. You have full access. So we'll now move on to the last part of our certifications, which is being able to track in your organization who has or who has not uploaded their relevant certifications via your compliance report. So going to our left sidebar, we'll select Reports. We'll then select the Compliance tab, and then we'll select the view to view the full report of the certifications report. as you can see, we have some filters that we can apply. So we can click more. I've just got my window a little bit small, but you will see all the full list, including the ability to show archived certifications as well. If I do drag that over, like so. So we can choose to, again, report on our archived certifications, really handy feature. And by default, the status of these certifications that are shown are any that are outstanding or expired. We can change the status filter to include all other ones, whether they're active, declined, or in review. And you can see that the visualization of the data updates, as well as the actual report update for us to see based on our filters. Now, whilst in our certifications table report, you see that we can bulk remind all personnel who are, pardon me, um, are needing to complete that certification, whether they're either outstanding, overdue, declined, or expired. So we can bulk remind. We can use these selection boxes on the left to be a bit more targeted and remind all personnel. We can use the checkbox at the top to bulk um, capture people. Maybe we're filtered for a specific team and we want to bulk remind those in that specific team. We can do so and then select remind selected employees. Each compliance item will be listed with its own line with the details of it. And we can see if we scroll to the right a little bit, there is a little hidden action column. This action column will change depending on the status of the certification. So if it has been declined, we can manually remind on that one particular certification. Or if you do see, we actually can see if the certification is in review. We have a view button that will take us directly into the employee profile where we can view that certification. So if we did open up the report, maybe perhaps to a compliance officer, or maybe the managers, people managers, as I previously mentioned, this is a great way if they are a certification, even a certification approver, to go in, click view, and really easy way of managing certifications here in mass. We can also export certifications via the CSV button at the top of the table in the top right-hand corner. And that is our certifications report. If you do have any questions on certifications, please let us know in the Q&A. Right now, however, we're going to move on to our next topic, which is ongoing employee file management. So one question we do get all the time is what do we do with a returning employee? Maybe your roles are seasonal and now the employee is coming back after 6 months. Well, instead of needing to create a new employee file in the HR platform for your returning employee, you can simply just reactivate their existing file. Now, there are two ways you can reactivate your terminated employees, either in the employees list or in the overview window of their profile. So let me show you in the platform how to do this. So first up, the employee list. If we go to the sidebar, select people and an employee list, what we'll need to do is update the filters of our employee status, remove the statuses of all others, and then only select terminated. We'll see the list of our terminated employees. And under the actions column, we can click actions and we can see we have a reactivate employee button. This will bring us the pop-up to reactivate their profile. Otherwise, we can jump into their profile by clicking their name, and also on their overview window, we have the reactivate button in the top right options. This will bring us to that same pop-up. Now, there are a few key reasons why we strongly recommend reactivating employees. First is it avoids mapping issues between the HR and payroll platforms, maintaining that link between the original files in the HR and or in both systems to ensure there's correct details. A second reason is that it avoids the need for an alternative email address. Um, Now, that's because account emails must be unique, as the system does use this as a unique identifier to perhaps differentiate between two John Smiths, for example. The third reason is that it prevents payroll synchronization issues due to duplicate tax file numbers. The platform prevents the synchronization of employee files with duplicate tax file numbers. And fourthly, reactivating allows a consolidation of the employee's tenure details here, and also their salary and employment history records within that one existing file. This also avoids employee confusion about login credentials between their old profile, their Hero Passport, and the new profile. So everything is just kept in one place. This makes your employee's life a little easier and your life a lot easier too. So let's go ahead and click reactivate. Now, when you do, the pop-up will appear. And one of the key things that you'll need to consider is whether you're going to use a new start date or keep the original one. Now, it might seem like common sense to enter a new start date for a returning employee, but depending on your business and your legislative requirements, there are going to be cases where you might need to keep the original start date instead. This comes down to things like how long the employee has been away, your internal policies, and whether the employee is covered by an industrial instrument such as an EBA or award that includes rules about continuity of service. Some awards do have specific clauses around this. For example, one award might require you to honor continuity of service if the employee returns within 6 weeks, and another references 3 months in relation to long service leave entitlements. So if you're an Australian organisation working with modern awards, we do recommend to check with Fair Work Australia or your payroll team to confirm what applies. I always strongly recommend going straight to the governing or industry body. That way you just might get the most accurate advice for your specific situation. If continuity of service does apply, you will need to keep the original employment start date to ensure long service leave and other entitlements are tracked correctly. But if it doesn't, let's say the employee's gone for 2 years, then go ahead and enter and set a new employment start date. That ensures the accruals and anniversaries reset correctly moving forward. So we'll pop in a new start date. We're going to say that Terry here is coming back this year. He is coming back not February, but a little bit sooner. Let's just say on the 26th of January. Now, we can also, as covered in our part one, adjust the system access date. What that will allow us to do is allow that employee to come access the platform and the organization, all those details a little bit earlier, have that access to maybe perhaps have another read of maybe policies that need to be re-acknowledged, or maybe you've assigned a course via Go One that you want them to complete before their official commencement date. Now, as the platform calls out by clicking the purple highlighted text at the bottom, once you do reactivate an employee, you may need to update some elements of the employee file after reactivating, and they're listed here. They won't, if you are reactivating, they actually won't be required to recomplete that onboarding workflow as a new employee would. So you will need to make sure that the employee's new job details, paid details, banking details are all up to date and correct, as this will sync across to payroll if they are connected to Employment Hero payroll. If they're connected to Xero or MyOb, for example, The reactivation instead will trigger a payroll admin email to get them reactivated on the payroll side. We also have the ability to re-trigger onboarding checklists as well to ensure that the return of your employee to the organization is seamless. But again, you might not want to. Totally up to you. Let's go ahead and click reactivate. And we can see here that Terry's now in an active status. And you can see that he's in pre-onboarding. That's because we've set his new start date as a little later. But let's just say today is their start date. We can absolutely update this in their employment details under the start date listed here. That being said, once you we'll now cover how you can update your employee files when their employment type or role does change. When there are changes to your employee's role, including job title, employment type, or maybe they receive a salary increase, it's important to ensure that you're always creating new records for auditing purposes. So let's just say this salary history here, you're creating a new record instead of editing or updating the current records. Now, if your employee has transitioned into a new role within your organization, firstly, you will need to head to the employee file. Under employment records, we're going to select view more and select employment history. Now, when reactivating an employee, the system does duplicate the employment history, the previous employment history with the new start date as well. This is the only real instance where we do say and recommend to update and edit this line via the ellipsis icon. Otherwise, in all other instances, select to add employment history unless you need to there was a typo that you needed to correct. So we're going to edit this. And you can see the details here. Now you will need to type in the job title again. So maybe just because it's highlighted here, that's what its previous selection was. So maybe they are coming back as a senior engagement officer. Right. Now, if the job title is common, just as I mentioned in our part one, it will pre-populate down here in the industry standard job title. If one isn't found, it will just say no matching one is found. This just helps you as the platform calls out with smart match results when you do go ahead and maybe want to backfill this position as well. It just refines that. We then have our start and end date that we can adjust, our employment type and contract type as well. And we can click save. Scrolling down, before we move on to the salary history, it's worth also noting that when you do add a new employment history, that new employment history start date, so let's just say they got a promotion, what will end up happening is that new line will affect the previous line and pop in an end date on that previous line based on the new start date. So there's nothing you need to re-edit there. And the same applies when you are terminating an employee as well. It will pop in the termination date in the end date. Scrolling down, we then have our salary history. Pardon me. So now when we are reactivating the employee, if we did need to update the salary history, again, or maybe there was a promotion, click the add salary button. Don't edit the current one. Again, only do that unless there's a typo or a minor correction that needs to be made. That way you are tracking their salary across their tenure. Here you will pop in the effective from date. If it is a promotion, then the effective from date would be in alignment with the employee's start of their new position, or if they're returning the start of their start of their employment again. Just bearing in mind that if you are adding in a new salary midway through a pay cycle, um, the effective from date basically means that when this date is reached, it will then sync to your payroll platform. So this means that what will end up happening is the salary will then apply to the whole pay period that that employee is part of. So if it is midway through, your payroll admin will need to manually adjust in the pay run to account for the prior salary as well. That being said, we can choose to fill this out. I went into detail on this in our part one. So we will just go on a high level here. When this employee is salaried, they're not on an industrial instrument, so we're going to ignore these points. But if it does apply to you, you'll fill those out. The anniversary date will be again the start date of the employee's new role or when they return. Pop in your pay rate. I mentioned that this employee is salaried, so I'm going to pop in a new salary. So we're going to say 150,000 per annum, for example. Now, as I mentioned in our part one, we have our FTE calculator. So if they are full-time, pop in their normal full-time hours, whether they're actual and then what their normal full-time is, and you'll get the FTE as one, making sure that the pay rate up here is equivalent of that full-time capacity. If they are prorated, then you can adjust what their actual weekly hours is or are, and you will see the FTE value update and then by consequence, the effective pay rate. This is important for capturing the prorated amount for part-time employees. We can see here it's accurate, and this is what will be used across as a salary across the platform and will sync to your payroll platform. We'll then pop in the superannuation field. Again, that is just for record keeping as the payroll platform handles super. Pop in our pay category that we need to, our leave allowance template that we need to, our pay schedule, and importantly, a reason for change. This is mandatory. You have a few options. If none of the the first five on the list apply, then you can select other and then just pop in the comment in the comments field what the reason for the update is. Let's go ahead and click save, and this will save that salary history. You can see it's listed as a future date. So once that effective date is reached, it will then sync across and become active. If you do have any questions, please let us know in the Q&A. Right now, we're going to show you, well, when you update an employee file, whether it's the employee updating their own file or you as an HR admin or owner, making changes, certain actions will automatically trigger an email notification to your listed admin, payroll admin email that you've popped in the platform. For example, when you onboard a new starter or reactivate a terminated employee, whether you offboard someone, an email goes straight to the listed payroll admin. Same happens if either you or the employee update important information like the banking details, work eligibility, tax, or super. Those also trigger an email notification to the payroll admin. And if you make any changes to the pay details as well, that also sends an alert. Now, you'll be able to find out who your listed payroll admin is or make changes to this field under your settings, company settings, and then under your primary contact section, there is a payroll admin field here you can pop in. You can add in multiple email addresses in this field, separated by a comma, and there is no limit. When triggered, An email will The email they receive will state what details have changed, as you can see on the right-hand screenshot, and prompt them to check your payroll platform to ensure this has been updated. Now, if you are connected as a caveat to Xero or MyOb, the data may not automatically sync across, and they will also need to manually update this information. Your project team will provide you with supporting documentation that specifies this in more detail if that applies to you. Now, employers can update quite a lot of information via their Employment Hero app. They can update personal details, banking details, emergency contacts, the medical disclosure statement, work eligibility, tax declaration. Just bearing in mind that changes to the superannuation and additional information questions must be done on the desktop. If you do have any questions for us on ongoing file management, please let us know in the Q&A. We are happy to answer any questions that come across. Next up is offboarding. When it comes to offboarding an employee, you will be able to trigger a offboarding checklist. It is very convenient in comparison to onboarding checklists that you can choose whether to trigger it or automatically or manually. Your offboarding checklists, on the other hand, are always automatically triggered when you click to terminate. So just be sure that your offboarding checklist is set up correctly first. Then after which, you can choose to send out an exit interview to your leaving employee before their termination date passes. Now, even when you are using Employment Hero as an HR standalone system and aren't just connected to payroll yet, there will be a slight difference in how the offboarding process works. As I'm integrated with with the payroll platform, your platform may look a little different until you are integrated. So just keep that in mind. That being said, once you're connected, whether you're connected to HR standalone or payroll, the order that you follow is pretty much exactly the same. So firstly, it's extremely important to start the offboarding process in the HR platform first. Why, you may ask? Well, once connected to a payroll platform, the HR platform does become quote unquote that source of truth for employee data that you might have heard us talk about. What that means is that any updates you make to an employee file, including a termination, sync from the HR platform to the payroll platform, not the other way around. So if you do end up terminating in the payroll platform first, this does not sync to the HR platform, and the employee will actually remain active in the HR platform. A little bit of a security risk there. Then, as the HR platform attempts to override your payroll platform, because it is the source of truth, an error will appear and flag for you. So if you are connected to a payroll platform, be sure to start in the HR platform, and then you'll be able to actually select whether a payroll cutoff date in the HR platform to allow you to access and manage any outstanding leave requests or timesheets as you process the termination pay in the payroll platform too. In comparison, the HR standalone will only be required to select an employee access date where they'll no longer have access to your HR platform. So let's jump into the demo platform and take a look at how to terminate an employee. Now, when it comes to offboarding an employee, this can be done via the employee list. So if we do go back to the employee list here, we can search for Terry, for example, and we can select actions and then offboard. This will bring a pop-up, or we can go into their profile and click start offboarding on the top right-hand corner of their overview window, and the same panel will appear. Now, just as quickly as we reactivated Terry here, sadly, we are going to offboard them as well. When it comes to completing on the details here, what's important to note is that you'll pop in the termination date. When you do, what's important to note that if you're backdating or you're applying today's date, you won't see some you won't see some additional fields. If you select a future date, for example, what will happen is some few more options will become available. The employee access and payroll cutoff. If you are just noting, if you are with intelligent payroll, you won't see the payroll cutoff date. Now, scrolling to the next field, we have our termination type. Clicking the field will present us with some drop-down options, and these are directly from the ATO's STP categories. This will sync to the payroll platform to help keep you compliant once you're connected to the payroll platform. If you're not connected to payroll, you may see some slightly different options. Then you can apply a comment to the termination. Now, the comments that you do pop in here are totally confidential to you. The employee cannot see any details. So maybe they are moving into state, right? Then we have this selection whether we want to consider this person personnel for rehire. It's totally optional, but if we do recommend using this because what it will allow you to do is it will be a reportable field within your termination report as well and help keeping track of employees that you may want to consider coming back in the future. Scrolling down, we are then coming back to our employee access and payroll cutoff date fields. Now, there are differences in the details you will need to enter when offboarding your employee when connected to a payroll platform versus HR standalone. Now, when it comes to HR standalone, you will only have the ability to enter in an employee access date because you're not connected to the payroll platform. And this employee access date gives you the ability to specify the date or time that your offboarding employee will no longer have access to the platform. Now, in cases where the employee has been immediately dismissed, you can select the remove access immediately option. Alternatively, you can select to allow access until a specific date and time, or you want to allow access, pardon me, to the term until the termination date, i.e. at midnight of that day as well. So you have a few different options there. Now, just below that is our payroll cutoff date. When it is, this will open up when the termination date is future dated. And we have two options. Now, if we select same as termination date, if your termination falls exactly on the next pay cycle, for example, you can select the same as termination date option, or maybe your payroll platform or your payroll team is okay with running an ad hoc pay run to process the payout. If we do have maybe the termination date doesn't align, for example, with your pay cycle, or your payroll team prefers not to run an ad hoc pay run, you can absolutely choose to set a custom date instead. This gives you that extra time to process final payments, leave, and timesheets in the following pay cycle. For example, if the pay run is at the end of the month and the employee resigns on the 15th, you might want to select a cutoff date of the 31st, for example. This keeps their payroll record active a little bit longer while offboarding and tying things up. Now, setting these dates, these access points, especially for the employee access point, just be wary that, or just keep confidence, and we will get into this at the end of the session. But your employees will still be able to have access to their pay slips and historical data post termination through Hero Passport, and I will definitely go through this at the end of the session. Just below that is the platform. If the system does detect that they are a primary manager, it will actually flag this for us, even if they are a secondary manager. But because Terry here is a primary manager, it will allow us to reassign direct reporting employees in the next step, and I'll show you that soon. And lastly, here, you can also select to create a vacant position to add to our workforce planning tool. Um, Please note, though, that the option to create a new vacancy won't appear here if the reason for termination is redundancy to help you keep compliant. We won't be covering this feature in today, as vacant positions are covered in our requisitions training session. So let's go ahead and click terminate. As you can see, that next step that I just mentioned will allow us to reassign any direct reporting employees to a new manager, either in bulk or individually. If we wanted to do it in bulk, we can make the selection using the selection checkboxes if there are multiple, and just use the bulk one at the header to select everyone else. And then we can use the bulk assign to pop them into with a new manager. So let's just say they're going to be removed to Raymond Holt, like so. What we'll need to do is set an effective date as well when that sync happens. So we did say that we're terminating them on the 19th. And what will happen is when that date part is reached, the employee down below will then move from the current manager to the new manager. You can also do the assignment of, we'll need to click bulk assign as well so that it will pre-fill those fields, but we can always choose individually who, on a per individual basis, who they're going to be reassigned to as well. Now, why is this important? Well, names are not removed in the organization chart or elsewhere. Maybe you've set up certifications to be approved by managers. So they won't be removed when they're terminated. So it's just best for the continuation of the direct reports, leave, timesheet management to reassign as early as possible. Again, when that effective date is reached, it will sync across. So you can choose to reassign now, or you can reassign later down at the bottom. If you don't choose to reassign now, you will absolutely still have the ability to reassign the manager on their overview by clicking reassign manager, and that panel will appear for you again. Now, as you can see here, now Terry's profile is gone into a active but offboarding status because we're allowing them access. If it is future dated, they will see this. If it is future, or you will see this. If it is future dated, you will still be able to edit the offboarding or cancel the offboarding entirely. So we can absolutely do that if we wanted to. So maybe there was a renegotiation or things have changed, we can cancel the offboarding and they'll just go straight back to an active status. Or we can edit the offboarding and maybe perhaps change the access type as well, or maybe adjust it to the termination date as today's date as well. So we can still absolutely do that too. Again, the reassigning will show us. And then this will select it as terminated. This will trigger the offboarding checklist task to the owners as well. And then now let's just say we didn't terminate the employee completely, and they are in between. I've got 4 weeks of notice, so they're in an offboarding status, but they're still active and waiting waiting out their termination, their notice period. With that, we have our exit interviews, which is next coming up now. So conducting exit interviews with your employees, leaving your organization does allow you to uncover trends, identify areas for improvement, and enhance your employee experience overall as you learn from those exit interviews. So let's go ahead and jump back into the demo platform. And exit interviews are found under the engagement icon and selecting exit interviews. Within the exit interview feature in Employment Hero, you could create a single exit interview survey to send out to any employees who are leaving your organization. You will see by default all exit interviews that have been are in either awaiting to be published or have been published here, as you can see. But to create one, we'll need to first go ahead and go to our Templates tab. If you're creating your own exit interview template, you will need to click the New Exit Interview Template button. For any that you do create that are custom, you will see the ability to, under the Actions column, to either use the template or delete the template as well. Or if you did need to edit the template, you can click the name of the template itself. Alternatively, you can select the Employment Hero template we have provided for you by clicking the Use Template action if you would wish to utilize this. And this is the only, our own one is only defined with an action of Use Template. We can always preview it by clicking the title of that exit interview, and then we can click Use Template as well. Now, the Employment Hero one is 46 questions long, quite comprehensive. And I'm pretty sure you're not going to send a 46 question long exit interview survey. The reason why we provide so many is that these are not set in stone. We've given you more than what you need. So that way you can absolutely just go in and remove the ones that you don't want. Avoid you needing to build out your own options. So let's just say, we want to remove question 2 or question 3, for example. This will just remove it by clicking the trash icon. You can remove the questions that don't apply. You can also reorder this by clicking the question heading. You can adjust these as you'd like. If we do scroll right down to the bottom, so just bear with me, we can add more questions in if we wanted to add some extra ones. And you will notice that there are 2 types of interview question types. We have multiple choice or free text options as well. You'll pop in your question. If you've got multiple choice, you'll pop in those multiple choice options as well. And once you're ready, click Next. Next up, you'll then assign the participants to this survey, so the people that are leaving your organization. So we can search for anyone in the organization. Let's just say Amy here and Ahsoka are leaving our organization. We can select them, and then we'll set up the schedule there when that survey is going to be issued to them. So let's just say it's going to be for Tuesday, for example, next week. We can set the start time too. So let's just say we're going to set up for maybe 9:30 a.m. And we can either save it as a draft if we did want to go back and re-edit it before publishing. But if we do go ahead and click Publish, because we've set a future date, it will be in a pending status. However, if we click the Actions button, we can choose to publish now. What will end up happening is, because it's in a pending status, when that start date and time passes, it will then issue it, but we can always override that by the Actions button and click Publish now and select Publish. This will then send an email notification to the employees that they've got a exit interview survey to fill out. And then they can complete that either in the Employment Hero app or on the desktop. And they will have access to complete the survey until they no longer have access to the platform, i.e., they are no longer an employee. If there are zero responses, you can delete the survey. However, if once there are responses in there, like this one here, we won't be able to delete it. We'll only be able to download a CSV report of the responses that have been given. Now, for those who are on our highest tiered subscriptions, so Platinum and Unlimited, we have the ability to automate this process of issuing exit interview surveys via our workflows feature. So in order to do so, go to your sidebar and select the workflows icon. What you'll be able to do is then you'll click the Browse Templates tab, and then you will select the Offboarding tab and select the first template to send exit interviews to terminating employees. What we'll do is we'll open it up as a draft because we want to specify who exactly is going to get this survey and what survey they are getting. This will bring you into the workflows engine where we can then customize this. It's very simple. Firstly, we can adjust the name of this survey by this automation by clicking the pencil icon on the top node. And then what we can do is we can say this is for senior leadership, right? Maybe I know I've got another one in there, so I'm just going to have this as a second copy just for this demonstration. And we will create a exit interview survey workflow for the senior leadership team when they do offboard. And it might be a different type of survey to what we send our regular employees. Now, breaking down what will happen is we have 3 different fields here. We need to define when this is going to happen, which is part of our triggers and conditions. Then we'll define any conditions, so filtering out who is going to be included in this workflow, and then finally we'll select the template that we want to be issued out that action. So we're going to select the first purple text, which is employee termination date is approaching. Under when this happens, we'll see that this is the only option for us. So it is based on that termination date that we enter in. So there's nothing we really need to do here. But let's go ahead and filter out some people by our conditions. Using the panel on the right, we can add a condition. We've got a few fields that we can choose from to filter out. So I want to do this by team or group. So team here. There's an explanation of what that field means as well, so you know exactly what that filter is. Then we'll select the condition. It's going to be is equal to, and then the value, and we're going to choose our senior leadership team or group that we've got. We can add more conditions if we want, but we're going to click Save. And then we're going to select under then do this, the purple text, which will then allow us to specify which exact template that we want to send and when. So we'll select the exit interview template. So I've got one here for a senior leadership template here. And then we can define when this action will be performed, whether it is going to be immediately, but maybe we did want to delay it. If we wanted to delay it, unselect immediately, and then you'll be able to customize when this is going to be sent out. So let's just say we're going to send this out 2 weeks after the termination date. We can adjust the field. So we're going to pop 2. Then we're going to can change the, instead of days, we're going to change it to weeks. And then we're going to say after the employee termination date. We'll click, before we click save, we can click and to add another action. Maybe we did want to send an email notification to the HR team if we wanted to um, by selecting our recipients. And then we can pop in an email advising when that has been triggered. And again, we can have this aligned to the trigger date as well. So really easy, but I'm not going to for now. We'll click save. So therefore, uh, when the trigger date happens 2 weeks after, if they are part of the senior leadership team, they will be sent that exit interview survey that we have specified. We'll click Save Flow and Publish, click Confirm. This will bring us back into our Manage Workflows tab, select Offboarding, and we can see our next published one here that is ready and will be used next. So we can see it's active. If you do have any questions about this workflow, please let us know in the Q&A. However, we are now finally going to land the plane by quickly going through the Hero Passport, as I mentioned a little bit earlier. Now, Hero Passport lets your past employees access their important documents that they still need, such as their employment contracts, along with their pay slips and payment summaries. Employees can access this with their existing Employment Hero login, meaning it will save them time tracking down their old employee records. This is also why we recommend that employees keep this same account email so that if they do move to another organization that uses Employment Hero, they'll still be able to see all their previous pay slips, HR documents, etc., contracts that they've signed. If you did have them change their account email to their company email, just so all notifications get filtered through to the one inbox, just make sure that you add to your offboarding list maybe a task to get the employee to change that back to their personal one. Now, when you do click to access the Hero Passport, when you click on your name at the top right-hand corner of any page in the Employment Hero platform, you'll see Hero Passport as an option in the list. Then you'll see a list of your current and active or historical organizations that use the HR platform as their or Employment Hero as their HRIS. And if you do click, you will see that the employee will be able to see from their chosen organization their past historic details, their previous pay details and pay slips, their contracts that they've signed, of the like, those documents as well. So really handy feature that won't need to come back to you and saves that time as well tracking down that material. Well, that does bring us to the end of today's session. Thank you so much for joining. If you didn't have any further questions, please feel free to drop off the call. And we thank you for coming and we'll see you soon. Otherwise, if you did have any further questions, please stay on the line. We'll allow you to come off mute once we have stopped the recording, and we will most definitely be able to answer any questions that you might have. That being said, thank you so much for joining, and we'll see you in the next one. Take care.